Well, hello and welcome to the Grow Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Vicky Laffey, and I make these podcasts because I want to pass on my wealth of knowledge and experience that I've accumulated over the past 10 years of me being an entrepreneur, so that I can help you launch and grow your own small business. Please remember to click subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Grow Your Business podcast again. I'm your host, Vicky Laffey. Now, as a lot of you may know, I work a lot with people who are making this brave and exciting leap into self-employment. So people who are making the transition from employed to self-employed, who are maybe turning that side hustle into a full-time business. Maybe that's a redundancy situation and they want to start a business afterwards. Whatever it is for you, I love to work with this group of people and help their businesses grow and help them get established, give them the knowledge and the encouragement and courage that they need to get started in business. And I love to do this because of my story. And I basically left the world of banking over 10 years ago to start my own floristry business, a business which I still run. And it's a really exciting time. And now I run multiple businesses, so it's a really exciting time, and I love to kind of show people through that. So we're doing a series of interviews at the moment with other people who have also made this leap, because I love hearing people's stories. I love hearing how they got to the situation where they're at now, all of the feelings and the emotions and the struggles and the successes that come alongside of that. So today we have the pleasure of speaking to Katie Hope. So hello, Katie.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining me. It's great to see you. Now, Katie and I actually used to work together at that bank that I mentioned many, many moons ago. And, we both worked there for quite a long time. And Katie now has recently retrained and left the bank. I'll let her tell you her story, but she started her own business. And I've invited Katie along here to basically tell us a bit of her story. So yeah, fire away, Katie. Can you tell us a bit about what you went from and what you've gone into?
Yeah, sure. So yes, we have worked together before. 25 years is my total life in banking.
Wow.
For my sins, I worked predominantly in Treasury for about 10 years, and then I spent the rest of my time in IT, predominantly focused on leading teams of testers, people who do software implementations. So yeah, very exciting and very fast paced, and invariably, unfortunately, it involved lots of conference calls at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when we discovered we'd broken something.
So you're on call, yeah.
And we had to work out how the heck we were going to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I talked over you there, Katie. Beg your pardon. But yeah, it sounds really regimented. And having worked in IT myself, I know you're told what to do, when to do it, and things like that. And it's very structured. So there's a better word, I think. So yeah, you went from this world, and you've been in there for 25 years, and tell the crowd your story of how you made that leap.
So for me, the thought process around wanting to go solo came up around 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So if I rewind to 2016 and give you a little bit of backstory, that 2016 was the first time that I experienced coaching for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a Future Business Leaders program, and they assigned me what they called an exec coach. Sounds very posh. It was a coach. And without a doubt, that individual, Ted, a fantastic chap, got me through one of the most difficult years of my professional career. And coaching just impacted me so incredibly that I had to know more about it.
Mm-hmm.
And as luck would have it, I had the opportunity within the bank to be able to train myself as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, that was where that little idea was sparked that there has to be more to life than working in IT.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat the training and was determined that I was going to do something professionally with it, and focused on trying to retain my coaching qualification.
Mm-hmm.
That takes quite some time because effectively you need 100 hours in order to be able to apply to be certified through the International Coach Federation.
So in terms of experience working with and coaching people.
Yes, yeah. There's quite a bit that you have to evidence. I guess kind of like passing a driving test or whatever it is, you've got to be able to showcase you have certain competencies. But it was around 2018 that I started the spark of an idea that I want to do more of this than just side of desk coaching. I was starting to notice that I was prioritizing the coaching over the day job, and almost felt a little bit resentful of the day job that was holding me back from doing what I was passionate about.
Been there.
So we were bought, I think it was around 2018, 2019 by another bank. And at this point, that idea almost grew into this might be an opportunity for me to maybe move on and do something different. So really focused on achieving the qualification. And then in 2019, very back end of 2019, I got given the news that I was going to be made redundant. And at that point, it was almost, this is it. This is my chance to, dive in with 2 feet and see what's going to happen. Unfortunately, as I'm sure many of your listeners will have experienced, COVID was a bit of a sledgehammer in a lot of people's plans last year. And sadly, the bank retracted my redundancy. So that left me a bit upside down in terms of what the heck am I going to do? So I guess that's where a strong sense of purpose comes in. It felt like, okay, it's thrown me a bit of a curveball. I might have to have a little bit of a rethink that it's not going to be a exit the bank and dive full time into coaching. What am I going to do? And it probably took me about 8 weeks of, we'll call it wallowing, Vicky. There was definitely some wallowing in there.
Been there.
To sort of sit and go, okay, that's outside of my control. What can I control? I can control finishing the last of the practice hours that I need to qualify. I can start building my network of other coaches, starting to find out a bit more about it. I can start to do a bit more professional development. So what other skills and competencies in the coaching world can I add? And can I get myself into a position that when COVID ends, I'm either potentially going to be at risk of redundancy again, or I'm going to have to take that decision. Am I just going to ask to go part-time and build my practice up on the side, or am I going to be super brave and I'm just going to go, screw it?
Yeah.
I'm diving in with 2 feet.
Love it.
And as luck would have it, I think it was about February this year, the redundancies started back up again, and it was confirmed I was being made redundant.
Oh, yes. So how did that make you feel?
It was really exciting that I could almost effectively restart my plans, but also really intimidating. When you don't have any other, I'm about to say any other identity. For me, I've only ever worked at the bank since I was 16. So a lot of the value that I place in myself is wrapped up in working for the bank. And as the day crept closer and closer, I had quite a few, I'll call them wobbles.
Yeah.
Big wobbles, little wobbles.
To be expected, yeah.
Was this the right decision for me? And there is that almost fear of, I should go back where it's safe and it's warm and it's comfortable. I know what I'm doing. People value my skills. And yeah, there were a few times I almost dived back in and said, I've made a mistake. I need to stay where I am. But what kept me going with my clients, just as you'd have a one of those wobbles, you'd have a phenomenal coaching session with a client, and then you'd sit back and reflect on it and go, that's what I want to be doing for the rest of my life.
The universe is saying, hey, Katie, this is what you should be doing. Yeah.
We'll call that a metaphorical slap round the face. Katie, come on.
Yeah. Oh, Katie, well, this is fantastic. So this is it was a bit of a side hustle. It wasn't just a like, right, I've left the bank. What do I do now? This was as a lot of people experience a gradual process, right? There's so much about what you said that I would love to pick up on, and I've loved hearing your story, and I hope it's of inspiration to others. And I mean, there's this time you said something there. Which a lot of people experience, and when you say to yourself, there's got to be more to life, and I experienced this as well. I can't be writing IT systems documents for the rest of my life, or filling out forms for the bank or whatever it is people do. And you're just like, no, man, I've got to do this. And especially when you said, when you started putting your plans into place after that, and you started this journey into coaching, and that feeling of starting to prioritize the side hustle over the day job, and begrudging the day job because it gets in your way, and I totally resonate with that, and I think a lot of other people do, and I think this is a real sign of, like, the universe telling you, like, you should really be doing this other thing, because the reason why people make this leap is because they feel whatever they're doing, it doesn't kind of set them alight, or it's not really what they want to do. Maybe it's a job they fell into, or they're not doing something that really gives them that buzz and sets them on fire, and that's why they reach this point where there's like there's more to life. So I absolutely 100% kind of, I'm with you on that one. Yeah. I also love what you said about the when COVID hit and you had to kind of pivot your plans a little bit, as well. So you were on the roll, you were kind of making this journey into your self-employment, and then COVID hit, and then it put a spanner in the works, basically, and you had to, as a lot of people did, change plans and really kind of to have a massive rethink. And I think that, Katie, kudos to you, because this is like a really a sign of a great entrepreneur, is that you can just pivot, and you don't let something like that set you back or get in your way, or at least not for long. You are able to change, because life and business just generally throws things at you. It throws you curveballs. Things don't always go as expected. So high five to you, Katie, for doing that, and still achieving your dreams. Absolutely. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about this loss of identity as well, because I think there's something that, like, a lot of people can relate to, whether they've been in a bank for 25 years or whether they've just, worked for someone else in various jobs for a long time. They've never been self-employed. There's this identity, I am a IT professional. I am a, whatever it is, what they are. So I would love for you to talk a bit more in depth about that.
Yeah, I mean, identity for me, and to be fair, it'll be different for everybody, but identity for me, it was predominantly all focused in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So cards on the table, I knew from quite an early age that having children wasn't something that I was hugely passionate about.
Likewise.
I do have a stepdaughter,
Mm-hmm.
who I think she's 18 this year. God. And I've had since she was around 2. So I have had a child for a number of years, but I was fairly certain that being a full-time mum wasn't something that I felt passionate about. But I'd always taken a lot of satisfaction from achievement in the workplace, climbing the ladder, making a name for myself, growing my salary, and wanting to provide a comfortable life for myself. And I think I was fortunate enough that in the banking world, when I first joined, it was very much focused on the skills that you brought to the organization. I think over maybe the last 5 or 6 years, things have moved more towards being much more conscious about behaviors and less about the skills that you bring. But it was, 8 to 10 hours a day for me. It was what I lived in. I lived and breathed. And I think if you met me at a party or, a gathering and asked me to introduce myself, I think within one or two sentences I'd be into, and I work for a bank and I'm part of an IT team, and I could quite comfortably talk for quite some time about what it was that I did. But I would probably talk very briefly about who I was outside of work, because that was where I felt I was at my finest, was in the workplace.
It was one and the same, basically.
Yes, yeah. And for me, that was probably what was most worrying for me in taking the decision to leave the bank, was all of my skills, all of the qualifications. I hold a master's certificate. It has all come through working for the bank. And it almost felt, I'll go as far as to say, I was abandoning my identity.
Yeah.
That I felt I was having to choose between following my heart, which was the coaching, but effectively leaving behind Katie Hope. And I really struggled with that for a good 3 or 4 months, around who the heck am I going to be when I leave the bank? I'll have no skills. Who's going to want to buy my coaching services? And I found it really difficult to almost blur the lines between, it wasn't a line that you had to cross that said, bye-bye Katie Hope IT manager, hello Katie Hope leadership coach. That actually what made me the coach that I was all of the skills and experience that I'd gathered during my time in the bank.
Invaluable.
It took me quite a long time to get there, Vicky. And I think that was the center of my wobbles at times, around, was I making the right decision? And once I wrapped my head around, actually, it wasn't to leave something behind. I wasn't leaving things behind. I was moving towards.
Absolutely.
That got me where I needed to be mentally.
Good for you. I suppose your coaching background would have helped with that a little bit. You almost coached yourself in a way.
I definitely had to I had to lean on other coaches to help me do that. I guess it's kind of like being a doctor and not taking your own advice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to work really hard on that. And I'm sure many other people will struggle with that. You can't work somewhere for 30 to 40 hours a week and for it not to form a huge part of your identity.
This is it. And whether it's whether you've worked for the same place for as long as you did, or whether you've just worked in a full-time paid job for years, you've only ever worked for someone else, there's this huge mindset shift. It's really hard for people to wrap their heads around. And you're used to going to a place every day, most likely, and you go to the job, you do the job, you come back home, and the rest of your life fits around that. You turn up to this place of work, you're told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. You don't necessarily get to make all the decisions, and you're told in your monthly one-to-ones, how well you've done at the thing that month and what you need to be working towards and that sort of thing. So it's a huge mindset shift when people are moving into self-employment, that they all of a sudden, the people who make the decisions, and they're like, they don't always know how to do that straight away. Anyway, it takes them a little while to wrap their heads around it. And that it takes a while to know it's okay to just decide to do this thing, or decide to make this product, or decide to create this service, or whatever it is you do. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. We'll try something else, or tweak that thing so that it does work. There's no right or wrong. Basically, this is you getting to make the decisions. This is you trying things, and they're not used to that. People who are coming from the world of employment aren't used to that mindset. So as soon as people wrap their heads around this and really, realize it's okay. There's no one to tell me, yes, that's the right decision to make, or no, that's the wrong decision to make. Once they get used to that, and they realize that they are their own boss, that's a game changer for them. I certainly couldn't go back to working for the man now, and being told what to do and when to do it. I love being able to make my own decisions. So yeah. And just to touch on something you said there about, the skills, and realizing how you almost felt like it was a different skill. Yeah, like Katie Hope, IT manager, was different from Katie Hope, coach, and you're thinking, well, I'm leaving that set of skills behind and starting these new, but it wasn't. And I think a lot of people forget about all of the transferable skills that they have built up during their time of employment. I know my time at the bank definitely set me up in terms of like organizational skills and, using programs such as Microsoft Excel and, all of these sorts of things, and just speaking to different business areas and other teams and things like that. It really set me up, but people don't realize what they can bring to the table because it comes so naturally to them. That's just what they know. That's their job.
Yeah.
They turn up and they do it every day. So yeah, have you got any advice for people in that situation as a coach? What would you say to people who are thinking that?
The most useful things for me were, one, I wrote my coach bio, which, for people who don't know what that is, it's effectively a one-page CV. That covers at a high level your background experience, the skills and attributes that you have, and effectively why they should consider hiring you as a coach. I found that incredibly hard to do, but actually once I'd written it and looked back at it, it was that realization that, like, God, I've got so much experience, life experience, business experience. You list some of the skills that you've got. It was I found that incredibly useful to almost give myself a metaphorical pick-me-up around, I haven't left all of these skills behind. Actually, they're my package of who I am that I'm going to go out and sell to the people in the world. So I found that extremely useful. Secondly, for me, which actually came out of a session with another coach that I worked with, was to start to write my future self.
So this is a great exercise, Katie, for people to do. So creating this one-page CV. In your world, it was a coach bio. That's what it's called in the coaching world. For other people, it's still a useful exercise to do. To just write down, whether it's a brainstorm or whether it's a fully typed up CV kind of one-page document. I guess it's really good to just write down what skills they do have, and because you forget, don't you? You're just so used to doing your job, and it comes like naturally to you to just open your computer and use Microsoft Excel or whatever it is. So you were talking a little bit, you started to talk a little bit there before we had technical difficulties, about the writing your future self as well.
Yeah, it's almost a dream big in terms of who do you want to be in the next couple of years. And what's most important about it is to be really specific. So when people look at you, what is it that they see? When you talk, what is it that they hear? And when they interact with you, what is it that they feel? So some of the things that I've used would be that I come across as confident and articulate, that the passion for what it is that I do comes across, that I am comfortable to speak my value. Something that people, particularly when they're starting out, really struggle with. I can't tell someone that I charge that amount of money for a session, and to get down into real granular detail and then pin it up somewhere so that it's visible for you to have a look at, and keep adding to it and changing it as you grow and step into the shoes of being a self-employed person. So that's something that I have, and I've been working on for about 3 or 4 months now. And I've found that really uncomfortable. Because I think as human beings, a lot of us aren't good at talking about the positives about ourselves, about sharing our hopes and aspirations. But yeah, I found that really useful.
Yeah, we're not good at singing our own praises, are we? It's I don't know whether that's just a British thing or whether it's human beings in general. I don't know, but yeah, singing your own praises. Yeah, when you guys are, when the people who are listening here, when you guys are doing this exercise, when you guys are writing your future self, when you guys are writing your, brainstorming all of your transferable skills or your, what you're good at and things like that. Don't overthink it. Just get it down on paper, because I think a lot of people think, well, using Microsoft Word, so what? Everybody can do that, can't they? Or whatever it is that you do. I was on a group this morning and there was a lady who she designs like floral patterns for headscarves and things, and she was trying to think of a passive income idea, and but people were trying to suggest things, and she was like, oh well, I just assumed everyone could do this, or doesn't everyone know how to do that, and actually, like, no, you guys, that they don't. And so it's a case of writing down like what makes you special, what can you bring to the table. You are, say if you're starting your own cookie making business, or wedding cake business or something like that, what your skills that you're bringing to the table could actually set you apart and stand you in really good stead for strong business growth. And it's say if you can use Microsoft Excel, I keep using Microsoft packages as an example. I promise I'm not sponsored by Microsoft. But if you are able to use stuff like that, and another cake maker isn't, that then you might be able to create some great, organization. You keep track of your finances, you can be doing all sorts of bits and bobs that the other person can't. And that's just one thing that can strengthen you and your business. So yeah, just get all these things down on paper, you guys. I would strongly recommend that. It's a great bit of advice there, Katie, definitely. So do you want to talk a little bit about exactly what you do now? So you've made this amazing leap, and actually, I'm gonna ask you another question first about just the feelings surrounding when you actually made that leap. When you were making, in the middle of, your redundancy was coming through. That was a definite, you knew that was coming. You were going to leave on a certain date or whatever. And how did that feel, like knowing, okay, like this time next month I'm not going to be employed? Can you? I'd love to talk about more about the emotions you felt at that time.
Terrifyingly excited was how I described it to most people that I spoke to. As the days got closer, I would say the excitement diminished and the terror dialed up quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's inevitable from a reality perspective. It isn't just stepping into the unknown, it's also leaving behind, for me, people like not lifelong friends, but people that I've not only managed, but I've been friends with for quite a long time. I mean, some of the people on my team I've worked with for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And it was that thought of not being able to interact with them every day, that made me feel incredibly sad. So terror, definitely. If you've never been self-employed before, not knowing where your next paycheck's coming from is hugely overwhelming. And it can be very easy to get lost in the big picture, which I've done several times, struggling to see that point where you're going to be bringing some money in. And actually you've got to almost approach it the same way that you would your paid job, which is, I wouldn't look at an IT implementation that's landing in 2 years' time and go, oh, I've got no idea how we're going to make this work. It would be, okay, let's chunk it down into what do we need to do over the next few months. Let's get a plan. But it's very easy when all of a sudden your income's going from whatever it was to zero. That's hugely overwhelming, particularly if you've got responsibilities. So for me, the terror dialed up, but also the sadness. The last day that I exited, because we were all work from home at that point. We had a team Zoom, and I think for about the first 30 minutes, every time I opened my mouth to speak, I just burst into tears. It was so emotional. And then the team would be, okay, well, we'll just carry on talking crap until Katie pulls herself together. It was just looking at those people and going, I'm not going to be interacting with you every day. And I get huge pleasure out of people interactions, about helping people develop and grow. And the thought of not being able to do that anymore was just incredibly, incredibly sad.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to give the listeners any advice, it would be to schedule in some time. I'll almost call it, Vicky, to mourn your job, because it is a loss. It's perfectly acceptable to grieve the loss of the job that you've left behind.
Yeah.
And I think that was the mistake that I made, was I didn't give myself any grieving time. I was already tinkering away in the background trying to build the business. So the day I shut the laptop, the following day, it was just like, right, I'm on to building this business now. And actually it was a sort of weeks down the line that I thought, I really need a break, and had to disappear off to the Lake District for a week. And it wasn't until I got to the Lake District that I realised how badly I'd needed that break, and just the time to mourn the loss of something that had been incredibly important to me for 25 years.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely okay to feel like that.
Of course it is, absolutely. I love that you brought that up, because it's not something people talk about a lot, and there's no wonder you felt like that. This has been your life, like pretty much 100% your life in your identity for the past 20 odd years. And I'm really not surprised. And I'm sure there are lots of people listening who are feeling like that also, or did feel like that when they left. So yeah, thanks for being honest about that and bringing that up. But let's have a chat about what you went into. So you had your break in the lakes, and now you're a full-time coach. But yeah, I want to show people that this is possible for them, and there's life after work. There is a life outside of this institution you call work. What have you gone into? Tell us about your business now and who you help.
So predominantly, I've badged myself as a leadership coach. I'm most passionate about helping new generations of leaders grow and be amazing. Having had, as I'm sure many of your listeners have, some really terrible bosses in the past, I'm really keen that the newer generations of leaders don't give that sort of experience to their employees. So I work with newly promoted managers and leaders, helping them discover what leadership style they want to put forth into the world, and then how they go about getting there. For a lot of people who've just been promoted, they've worked hard to get that promotion, but it can sometimes be a rabbit in a headlights moment almost, that like, oh my God, I'm now responsible for people. And people have emotions and feelings, and how I talk to one individual doesn't seem to work the same way as talking to another individual. I desperately want to ask for help, but I've just been promoted and I'm frightened to ask for help because will that look badly on me? So it's my job to help connect new leaders with more about themselves, so getting them in touch with where their emotions come from and how those emotions can manifest in many different ways. For me, when I get overwhelmed, it's teary. For my husband, when he gets overwhelmed, he can come across as quite short-tempered and angry. So it's connecting them with their feelings, understanding their emotions, and then through that vehicle being able to better understand other people, to help them realize that people absorb and process information very differently. So for example, I'm an absolute feeler. I process the world through feelings and emotions. But someone else might process it through sound. Someone else might process it through visuals. So it's fascinating to watch when you're interacting with people, or even if you're arguing with your partner. You could be shouting at your partner, "You don't understand how I feel," and your partner's shouting back, "You're not hearing what it is that I'm saying to you." And you're missing each other because how you interact in the world is very different. And so that's ultimately the audience that I predominantly work with.
So I guess that helps them work their way up the ladder as well, and makes them become better leaders. And
absolutely, you know, I'm a firm believer that your job as a leader is to grow and empower the people around you, and ultimately make yourself dispensable. You know, I get super pleasure in watching my team grow and move on to bigger and better opportunities, and then bring in some new people to be able to do it all over again. So that's ultimately what I'm passionate about, whether that's individuals or working with individuals in organizations or even teams in organizations. But I'm also trying to devote some of my time to the not-for-profit sector. So at the moment, I am a telephone buddy for Macmillan. Particularly during the COVID period, where there are people with struggling with cancer who potentially felt really alone and isolated. So I donate, it's about an hour a week to stay in contact with somebody and just be their ear on the end of the phone.
Amazing.
And I'm also working with a military organisation, fantastic little not-for-profit that's focused on getting the spouses of military personnel back into the workplace. If you think, for example, that some of those spouses could be moving every 6 months somewhere different, holding down a job's very difficult. And also in terms of their positivity and their resilience, that can get chipped away quite quickly. With feedback from employers such as, well, I really want to hire you, but you could be gone in 6 months. And so they almost reach the point where they stop trying because they just can't see a way that they can re-enter the workplace. They're predominantly the sole carer for the children. So it's my job to help reconnect them with what they're passionate about, and start to be creative about finding jobs that fit around their unique set of circumstances. And I found that quite challenging, but also really rewarding. So I'm trying to give a little bit back as well as build my business.
Absolutely. And look at all the good you're doing in the world. Look at all this great impact that you're giving now. And that wouldn't have been possible. You didn't exist outside of the organization, outside of the bank before, but now with this, you know, because you've made that leap, you are impacting so many people and making such a difference in their lives, something that wouldn't have been possible for you before. So this is amazing stuff. And you guys listening, I want you to sort of hear that as well, because, you know, there is more to life than and I know you feel this inside, there's more to life than this job that you're doing, you know, whether it's part-time, full-time, you know, whatever it is, you have this day job where you are, there's something within you that says to you, like, this, there's got to be more to life than this. And there is this whole other life, whole other set of possibilities outside of this workplace. And you can do this, you know, there's people like me to help. There's the support of your family and friends and to get you there. And people do this all the time, you know, people make this leap and people are successful at it. And I want you to realize that you can be successful too. And hopefully hearing Katie's story today has helped you realize and help strengthen that feeling within you as well, that it is possible for you too. So Katie, I think that's a great place to leave that. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure chatting to you and catching up with you again. And best of luck with your coaching business. And can you just quickly tell the listeners where they can reach you if they are interested in any of your coaching services?
Sure, so you can find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and my website, which is katiehope connectionscoach.co.uk.
And that's Katie with a Y, guys, remember.
It is, yes. Katie with a Y.
Okay, great stuff. Well, thanks so much, Katie, and thanks everyone for listening. Well, thank you so much for listening all the way through the podcast. I hope you found that really useful, and I hope you've got some actionable tips and knowledge to implement in your own small business. Please remember to click subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. And also you can catch up with me on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn.